إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا فإنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد عباد الله فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة. أما بعد, I bear witness that there is no true deity worthy of worship except Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the messenger of Allah and his final and last messenger. He bore the revelation of the last message and brought us the Quran and brought us the best of guidance. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Fear Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And do not die except in a state of Islam, in a state of submission to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. O you who believe, fear Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Have taqwa of Him. Have true taqwa of Him and say the correct speech. Say the correct thing. If you do, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala will correct and rectify your action. And whoever obeys Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala and His Messenger, he has already attained the ultimate success. Your brothers and sisters in Islam, the best of speech is the book of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And the best of guidance is the guidance of His Messenger Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In fact, there's no other guidance but the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the worst of matters are newly innovated matters in this religion. Because whatever is newly innovated in this religion will lead you astray, and whatever will lead you astray will lead you to the hellfire. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I would like to share with you a story from a time frame from the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It has to do with one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. So that perhaps we can benefit from the story and take some lessons, and maybe perhaps even draw some parallels to the time we're going through at this time. Now the story setting is that this was about a year perhaps after the Prophet ﷺ had made his hijrah. And so it's approximately the first year of hijrah, before the Battle of Badr in the second year of hijrah. And Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, if you don't know who Sa'd ibn Mu'adh is, he is one of the nobility of the people from Yathrib. And he was the head of Bani al-Ashhad. So he was from the noble people of the Aus, specifically the head of the tribe of Bani al-Ashhad. He had accepted Islam a year before the Prophet ﷺ did his hijrah. And because when he had become Muslim, his people loved him so much that every single person in his tribe had accepted Islam once he ordered them to accept Islam. At that time, he was about 31 years old. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh did not live for too long as a Muslim. He died in about the 5th year of Hijrah in Ghazwat al-Khandaq, and so approximately at the age of 37. However, this beloved Sahabi, his belief and his impact on this ummah was so profound that the Prophet ﷺ said that the throne of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala shook for the death of Mu'adh. So this specific story was narrated by Bukhari rahimahullah in his Sahih. And it said that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had went to Mecca to do Umrah. Now this after the Prophet ﷺ had did Hijrah. And obviously the Prophet ﷺ would allow some of the companions to do Umrah before the Fatih of Mecca, and he would give them permission to do so. But Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was kind of interesting because he had what he called a fellow friend or brother in Mecca. And this was Safwan ibn Umayyah. Umayyah ibn Khalaf, I apologize. Abu Safwan, Umayyah ibn Khalaf. Now they had an interesting relationship is because every time Sa'd ibn Mu'adh would go to Mecca, he would stay at his friend's place, Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And any time Umayyah ibn Khalaf would go on a trading route to Syria, he would pass by Medina and be hosted by his friend, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Now, if you don't know Umayyah ibn Khalaf, he is one of the head figures of Quraysh, one of the individuals who, strive or strove to make the Muslims' lives hard at that time, inflicting pain on them, forcing them to come back to this belief after they had become Muslims. And he was one of the nobility of the people of Quraysh. So this time that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had asked the permission of the Prophet ﷺ before the Ghazwat Badr, so the first year of Hijrah, to do Umrah, he went, and as usually he went to the house of Abu Safwan Umayyah ibn Khalaf. Now, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh asked Safwan, he said, look for me for a time that I can do tawaf that is kind of very quiet. Now the reason Sa'd ibn Mu'adh did this because he knew the tensions between the Muslims and the non-Muslims at that time. He knew what was going on, and so he did not really want to cause any more problems. And he was seeking a time that nobody would see him doing tawaf, because he realized that if he do this in front of the majority of the disbelievers, he could cause a sort of a reaction that might be unnecessary, or that might be harmful to him and the other Muslims. And Umayyah ibn Khalaf told him, listen, wait until the noon time where the sun is at the highest peak. At that time it's so hot, people usually take their nap. And so this is what they did. So Safwan Umayyah ibn Khalaf took Sa'd ibn Mu'adh at that time, and it was true, there was nobody around the Kaaba, and so Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was doing his tawaf. However, when he was doing the tawaf of Umrah, all of a sudden Abu Jahl was there. Now Abu Jahl was the leader of Quraysh, the master of that region, the master of the valley as they called him. And everybody knows the animosity of Abu Jahl towards the Muslims, how it is. In fact, he sought the blood of every single Muslim at that time, and he desired that. And so when he saw Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, he said, who is it that I see peacefully going around the Kaaba? Now, Abu Jahl did this for a reason, because it's not normal, it's very normal for people to do tawaf, but perhaps he realized who this person was. And in fact, in another narration, he says, why is it that I see you peacefully and tranquilly doing tawaf after you had claimed that you have taken the Muslims, that you've taken Muhammad and his friends as refuge, that you saw, you gave him refuge, and you supported him. Now, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh's reaction kind of differed here. Initially, he was trying to hide, not to cause problems, and this was out of the wisdom of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. But at the time where it required courage, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh over here, he responded and he says, it is I, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. He did not hide. He realized that hiding would cause a negative result, indicating that perhaps he's a weak person, that Muslims are weak, but rather he did the opposite. He said, it is I, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. So Abu Jahl proceeded to threaten him. And he said, if it wasn't for Abu Safwan, which was the host of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, he said, I would have done so and so for you. Essentially, he threatened him. He said, you would have not gone to your people safely back home. So essentially, he was threatening him. Now, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh responded reciprocally. He said, if you prevent me from doing my tawaf, I'll prevent something that is worse for you. I'll prevent your trade route to Syria. Now you have to realize the magnitude of this threat that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had made. This was a political threat. This was a threat to a livelihood of the people of Quraysh. They thrived on trade. Once they'd go to Yemen, and the other time of the year they go to Syria. If you cut those routes, essentially you are sanctioned. This is a political statement. This is almost waging war at that time. And so Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had made that threat to him. Now meanwhile, what was Umayyah ibn Khalaf doing? So being a host, you supposedly should side with your guests. But Umayyah ibn Khalaf did not do that. He told Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, lower your voice. This is the master of the valley you're talking to. So essentially he sided with Abu Jahl. And he was starting to grab Sa'd ibn Mu'adh to calm him down, which angered Sa'd ibn Mu'adh because this is not the behavior, the character of being a host. This is not what the Arabic tradition at that time was. And so he got upset with him and he said, "Da anka hada." Leave what you're doing. For I heard the Prophet ﷺ say that they will kill you. Now over here, Umayyah ibn Khalaf's response was kind of interesting. He said, did he say in Mecca? Sa'd ibn Mu'adh said, I do not know. Now the next statement from Umayyah ibn Khalaf is very interesting. He said, Wallahi, inna Muhammadan idha haddatha lam yakzib. By Allah, when Muhammad speaks, he does not lie. Now I want you to remember this for a second. And so afterwards, Umayyah ibn Khalaf ran to his wife at home and he said, Ya Safwan, did you not hear what my brother from Yathrib said to me? He said that Muhammad claims that he will kill me. And so his wife said, did he say in Mecca? He said, I do not know. And she had the exact same response. She said, by Allah, when Muhammad speaks, he does not lie. Moving forward a year from then, the Battle of Badr. Abu Jahl was starting to collect the people. And then he went to Umayyah ibn Khalaf and he said, listen, I need you to come out with us. You are like a nobility in here. You are head of a family. If you stay behind, they will stay behind. And so Umayyah ibn Khalaf argued and he said, hey, listen, did you not hear what my brother in Yathrib, do you not remember what he said? So Abu Jahl was very cunning. He said, listen, you don't have to come all the way. Just come a little bit and then return back again. Now this is very cunning, by the way. I'm going to explain in a second why. So Umayyah ibn Khalaf said, okay, so in case, because you beat me in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy the fastest ride I can find. In the hopes, of course, to get on it and kind of run back home. And he went to his wife and he said, prepare my battlefield, like weapons and attire and so forth. And she said, did you not remember what your brother from Yathrib said? He said, yes, I do remember. I'm not going with them all the way. I'm going to go part of the way and then turn back again. However, what happened was that every time he would go to a certain place, certain point, he would tie his camel and stay behind until he met his demise, as the Prophet ﷺ said he would meet. Now, there's many lessons we can take this, but there's a few things I want to grab from them, perhaps that can benefit us. Is one, you have to notice that the Prophet ﷺ did not prohibit individuals from having relations from non-believers in a place that was hostile to Muslims. And this is very logical, by the way, because keeping these ties are quite necessary. You need that bridge of communication. Because in the essence, our purpose is da'wah. How are we going to call these individuals and teach them the message of Islam and reveal to them the correct message without having connections with them? Furthermore, those ties, as long as they do not hinder a person's faith, they're okay. So there's a condition tied to this. You can have this relationship as long as it does not threaten your practice, your religious belief and your religious practices. Now the Prophet ﷺ trusted Sa'd ibn Mu'adh with this. Now you have to remember, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was considered kind of a bit of a youth. He's 31 years old, 32 years old at that time. But yet the Prophet ﷺ trusted him with this. Now Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was worth the trust. He understood this. Now I want to take a lesson from the personality of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh that perhaps the time we live in requires this type of personality. He had wisdom and courage. He was wise, he knew what to do and what not to do. He was an individual that obviously knew his rights. And so he argued for those rights. Now what am I talking about? It was tradition of the Arab time, it was the Arabs at that time, it was the tradition, especially the people of Mecca, that you never prevent a person who wants to do tawaf around Kaaba, you never prevent him from doing that tawaf. Because in the end it's a form of worship. Whatever idol they believed in the end it's a form of worship. And they've understood this. And this was something sacred to them, so they would never prevent this. Now Sa'd ibn Mu'adh knew this and reacted reciprocally. He said, you're going to prevent me, I'm going to prevent something worse. He was fighting for his rights. And so it's imperative for us to know our rights so we can defend them. Now what's amazing was Sa'd ibn Mu'adh's response. Now you have to realize Abu Jahl over here threatened pretty much almost his life. But Sa'd ibn Mu'adh did not cower, did not stand back. But on the other hand, he reacted as a person who is a head-to-head with the person who is in charge at the time of Quraysh. Now, what gave him that courage? In reality, it's perhaps the immense belief and iman that Sa'd ibn Mu'adh had. He's a person that believed in Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and he knew that anything that would happen is by the will of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and that whatever would afflict him would not miss him, and whatever would miss him would not afflict him. Now this belief gives a sense of courage to the Muslim. It gives the yaqeen. Now the only way he would attain this is through knowledge. Now the reason I'm saying this is because we live in a time that we need to enforce this in ourselves and our youth. We need to give them pride in who they are. This was Sa'd ibn Mu'adh by himself, a lone Muslim, in a hostile area that is known to perhaps kill other Muslims, torture them. And yet he had the courage to stand up and fight for his rights because he had enough iman. The only way you can build this kind of courage and belief and pride in any individual is through knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ did not waste any time in teaching his companions. This was one of the roles of the Prophet ﷺ, as a messenger, to teach people the religion. And so having knowledge is powerful. And I'm talking over here specifically Islamic knowledge. Secular knowledge will help you finding your rights, like legal matters, whatever the case is. But what's more important is this sacred Islamic knowledge that we require. Now the reason I'm saying this is because we are facing a very devastating phenomenon, especially with our youth. Many of the head figures, imams, or youth directors, or people who are in charge, counselors, whatever you call them, the majority of their da'wah with the youth, sadly, all it takes is a defensive measure of trying to clear misconceptions from the head of the youth, because these misconceptions have infiltrated their minds and went into the heart to the point that they started losing faith into religion. They started having doubts. They started not practicing very much. And the only way to counteract that was knowledge. We are spending so much time trying to fix this problem. We have no time to try to increase that belief in a community, let alone doing da'wah to non-Muslims. It should not be like that. But rather we should reach the level of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, to have knowledge, to have iman, to be able to withstand the pressure that we're facing, to be able to hold our ground and intelligently argue against the other person. Because some of these misconceptions, to be honest, are ridiculous. But our lack of knowledge makes us unable to respond to it. Now, by the way, whether it's youth or old, unfortunately we have this problem, but it's more prominent in the youth, because they're interacting with their peers more often than we have interacted with our peers. And so we have to perhaps develop this nature in our youth. Now, this is a beautiful example of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Now, another lesson I want to draw from is the reaction of Umayyah ibn Khalaf and his wife. Now, we know they're disbelievers, obviously. They're non-Muslims. And their belief that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is honest was not sufficient for them to be Muslims. Did not categorize them as Muslims because they believed in the Prophet ﷺ. Although it's one of the important factors of being a Muslim, you have to believe the Prophet ﷺ. The reason I'm saying this is because we have to realize that knowing something and acting upon it are two different things. We have to realize that our hearts are between the fingers of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. He turns them as He wills. Now what I want to do is draw a parallel of perhaps similar actions that Muslims might perform. Now we have to realize that sometimes we act as, we have some of the characteristics of maybe perhaps the hypocrites or the disbelievers. It does not take us out of Islam. But these are characteristics that we should be wary of, be afraid of. Right? We're acting like those characteristics, not like the Muslims that we should be, complete submission to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And this characteristic is that knowing the truth but not following it. Quite often as Muslims, perhaps due to the weakness of our iman or maybe pressures of society, whatever the case is, in reality it's not really an excuse. But sometimes we know what is right. We know something is mandatory we have to perform, or something is impermissible that we're not supposed to do. And yet we have that knowledge but still commit the prohibition and not perform what is obligated. And this is something that is very dangerous. This is something that's immensely dangerous. It does warrant perhaps the punishment of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Because it's worse, by the way, if you know. Ignorance sometimes is an excuse. Now, by the way, not intentional ignorance. Intentional ignorance is not an excuse. Quite often you see a person, hey, listen, what you don't know will hurt you. You know, I'm not going to learn this religion because it's an excuse. No, that's not what it means. It means that you have tried to learn, but you're still ignorant of something that is completely different. So knowledge in itself, knowing, is not sufficient. But it's rather acting upon that knowledge. Quite many of our predecessors would say that the zakat of knowledge is action. But rather, it is really not, it's absolutely not knowledge at all. Like, it's really not knowledge unless you act upon it. They say, هَدَفَ الْعِلْمُ بِالْعَمَلِ وَإِلَّا ارْتَحَلَ. So that knowledge had called for action. If action is not performed, knowledge would leave, essentially. This is the reality of things. We need to start acting upon our knowledge. We need to start striving to improve ourselves, learning our religion, so we can have stronger faith, stronger belief, so we can be able to withstand and endure the pressures that we are facing in the present and in the future. And so that we protect ourselves from the wrath and anger of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. And so that we would actually be worthy of the support of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. Because Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala supports His believing slaves and servants. He's acting slaves and servants. The ones who are muttaqeen. And in reality, taqwa means that you are protecting yourself from the wrath and anger of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala by performing what is obligatory and refraining from what is prohibited. Because in reality, this is the true definition of taqwa. And unless we perform based on knowledge and refrain based on knowledge, we have to start building this very quick, very fast. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لنا ولكم الرحيم. إن الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Dear brothers and sisters of Islam, I'm going to end this khutbah by just reminding like myself and everybody else that we have entered the month of Rajab, which is one of the sacred months in Islam, which means that pious actions are more rewarded. But similarly also, by the way, sins have more weight to it. And so perhaps it's also a good time for us to start preparing ourselves for Ramadan, so that we can hit Ramadan in a very good state, that we're ready for it, inshallah. And so this is just a reminder of some of the, perhaps increase our forms of worship, whether it's fasting, whether it's sadaqah, whether it's praying, whether it's reading the Quran in the month of Rajab. And I ask Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala to make us among the ones who strive and seek the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, and to walk in the footsteps of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions, and to truly seek knowledge to benefit ourselves, our iman, and to benefit our children. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. O you who believe, protect yourself from a hellfire. Protect yourself and your family from a hellfire whose fuel are people and stones. And so the only way we can protect ourselves is to know what we have to protect ourselves from. And this is why, once again, knowledge is important. اللهم اغفر لنا المؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات وارحمنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك الهدى والتقوى والعفاف والغنى. وربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم نسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى اللهم وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. وقوموا إلى صلاتكم ورحمة الله.